Well, Bob, as you know, this is a significant time of life.
Yes,
You've made it to a milestone that a lot of people don't get to.
very lucky guy.
So congratulations on your 100th birthday.
Thank you very much.
So even though you've told this story many times to a lot of people who know you, just for what we're doing here today, tell us, I mean, why do you think you've lived to 100?
I'm very, very lucky. First of all, inherited really good genes. None of these diseases are on either side of my parents or their family. All hard-working dairy farmers brought up on raw milk. And then I went mother a bunch of wonderful women all my life, very loving, caring, totally devoted. And then I went through World War II with an angel on my back.
So obviously you served your country for many, many years,
Yeah.
and we want to talk a little bit about your role with Sertoma here today.
Okay.
As a Sertoman, we know that it stands for service to mankind.
Yeah.
So tell us again, how did you get to start Sertoma here in St. Cloud?
Well, I was living in this house over here, and I was out in the yard one day, and the car drove up, and the guy got out, introduced himself. I was given he got my name from a friend of mine in Rochester because they just chartered a club down there. And I had a guilty conscience because there were a lot of salesmen in St. Cloud, and I thought people that are taking business out of this town ought to be putting something back into it. And so I was going to join the Exchange Club, but they blackballed me twice. And so I was kind of irate about that.
Yeah.
And the more he talked about Sertoma, the more I thought this was a real good deal. And so I called, I think it was 6 of my friends, and we met out at what was then Swigham's Motel. And 4 of those 6 decided to go along. And we had a couple of guys who didn't mind put the pressure on people.
Mm-hmm.
L's Electric, for example. He was working for the Smiths Distributing, and George Smith, you want to get paid? Join Sertoma. So it turns out Al was the secretary.
Okay.
And he had the same deal with people. These guys didn't have any question about putting the pressure on people, and I was a traveling salesman, so I had a chance to talk to a lot of people and explain what Sertoma was about. So we chartered September 1st, 1959 with 76 members as a breakfast club.
So from the day that the person knocked on your door until September 1st
Yeah.
of 1959, how much time did it take you and those original guys to get that many members?
Well, it took whatever that time amounted to, and we talked to people. And
Was that about a year?
oh no, it's
or
from
just a couple months.
I would say it's probably from July to September.
Okay.
Yeah.
So a guy knocks on your door and
Yeah.
says, "We'd like you to start a Sertoma club." You
Yeah.
had never met him,
Nope,
just some stranger,
that's right.
and you say yes. And because of that, you get a few friends, and suddenly a few months later, 79 members are chartered into the first ever St. Cloud Sertoma club.
Right,
Is that
yeah.
correct?
Yeah, and we had a breakfast club.
Okay.
And it was, we met at the press bar in the basement. And this was sometime in February. It was 17 below zero and about 1.5 feet of snow on the ground. And 2 guys and me showed up, and the program didn't show up. And we had been decreasing all the time. These guys kept falling out. So we decided to switch to Thursday noon at what was then the St. Cloud Hotel. And people started going back in all the time. And the president of the Exchange Club saw me on the street and knew the situation we were in. And he says, "Keep going, 'cause it'll come out," because he had gone through the same thing with Exchange. And so we kept building on it, and it got back up and got going again.
So you were the first president,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
So in September 1st of 1959, you started this club, and of
Yeah.
course you just became president.
Yeah.
What are some of the other offices that you've done? What
Well,
tell
then,
us just some of the work you've done through your life at Sertoma.
well, then I was chairman of the board the next year, of course. And of course, my claim to fame is fruitcake sales.
Fruitcakes.
Yeah.
I want to hear about
What's
fruitcakes.
tell us about the fruitcakes, Bob.
Well, I was a traveling salesman, so I could talk to people, you know. And I knew the guys who were civic-minded and who would buy. And there was 3 or 4 guys that would buy a case. And there was one couple that wanted 5 cakes and they ate them for the whole year. And a lady from Little Falls drove down to buy 2.
Wow.
I mean, it was a funny thing, you'd get this response, well, I already got a doorstop, and I already got a good anchor for my boat. It holds the boat real good in the waves and the wind and all that kind of stuff. So no, I don't want it. But then I keep talking about it because it was a good fruitcake. It really wasn't at the right price. And finally these guys Tom Ritchie at what do you call it? He'd put it out for his employees for coffee for all the time. And Hinkemeyer, he took it around and gave it to the nursing home. And George and John Smith gave it to the Poor Clares, a case, So I wound up selling about 13 cases every year.
Hey, Robert, great job.
Yeah, only 2 bounces.
Oh, you'd have had people waving at it all night long. Good job. Thanks again for your service.